Now that I've captured and recorded some MIDI data into MIDI clips, it's time to tighten them up a little bit. I think I played things just a little bit more sloppily than I would have liked. So I'm going to start by investigating the drum clip. I'm just going to double click it here and it appears in the detail view. And I'll just expand it and I'll click the fold button to get rid of the MIDI notes that I did not play. As I zoom in here, for example, you can see that MIDI clap, it's not quite locked right on the 1.2. Now, to be honest, some of this human feel might be something worth preserving. So before committing to any sort of quantization, again, I'm going to duplicate the clip for safety's sake. These MIDI files take up virtually no storage on your hard drive, so it's nice to just have backups. So I will now rename this one Raw, and we can begin looking at and editing the other clip below. What is quantization? Quantization is a way of tightening up our MIDI and forcing it all into fixed musical intervals. So I can do that manually by taking notes individually and dragging them around, but that is a bit tedious and not very efficient. So what I will do is make a selection of notes, and I can right-click to access the quantization settings from this menu, or as shown here, hit Shift-Command-U. And now we get a little pop-up, and I can tell it what interval I want to quantize to. 16th notes is generally a good starting point. If you're doing something a little more rote or at a different tempo, you might want eighths or you might want 30 seconds. Depends what you're going for, what tempo, what sort of rhythmic flexibility you're looking for. And the T setting stands for triplet. So if you're working with some triplet timing or mixed triplet and normal grid, you could select one of those there. So I'll leave it on 16ths. But another option is to set it to current grid. And the current grid is always displayed here. In the bottom right, you can see what the current grid setting is. So this allows me a little more flexibility depending on my current MIDI note grid editing magnification. So we can quantize. By default, it's just the start of the note that you probably want to quantize, and that's where the note's going to begin, and that's going to affect the timing of the note. If you want to quantize the end of the note, then that will adjust the length of all the notes to the current grid as well. Finally, we have an amount at 100%. Everything is going to be fully snapped to whatever the current grid setting is or whatever grid setting you've specified from the drop down. And if I click OK, look at those notes. They've all snapped to the grid and their length has all changed to 16th notes as well. Now, I did it just on those first few notes to show that quantization can be done selectively. You don't have to quantize all the notes in a clip. You can quantize just some of them. But let's go ahead and quantize all of them. So I'll hit select all and notice the notes that are a bit off and shorter. And now if I hit Command U, which is the quantize command, and I try to remember it by thinking of that U as a sort of horseshoe-shaped magnet, then everything will be quantized according to the last specified quantization settings that we adjusted in that menu there. So let's check it out, Command U. Boom! Everything tight on the grid. Now I'm going to undo that, and let's see what happens if I change the grid size. How do we change the grid size? Well, we can right-click in the MIDI editing grid and select a different fixed grid setting here, or an adaptive grid setting, so that if I scroll in and out, it will adjust accordingly. Look at the numbers change in the bottom right as I zoom in and out.